In 1965, 2 police officers in Houston, Texas were dispatched to an elderly couple's home for a welfare check. Inside, they discovered the butchered remains of the couple with no signs of an intruder. Theories range from revenge all the way to the JFK assassination, but the case remains unsolved. Today, we look at the disturbing case of the Icebox murders. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about the unsolved mysteries of this world. Everything from true crime to cryptids to conspiracies to aliens to the supernatural. To random questions. I am your resident mystery enthusiast, and joining me hearing this mystery for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
Hello. Welcome, Task Force. It's another week, another mystery. I'm excited. Not about the murders, but to see how this breaks down.
Okay.
Why are the cops going to someone's house for welfare checks?
Good question.
That already doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
It's a red flag or is it a blue flag? I don't know.
You know what? Any flag you want, we'll put it up there.
I just don't understand. Yeah, I'm curious. That's the number one thing that's on my mind right now.
Okay.
Is that like, why do a house visit to pick up an elderly? To pick up
just
a welfare
check on
check?
Them. Not a welfare check.
Oh.
Like a wellness check.
Oh, a wellness check. Oh, I thought it was like welfare. You know what I mean? Like they got money.
Cops got to get their cut.
I was like, what the
That's
hell?
What you're thinking.
Cops shaking down these elderly people for welfare checks, dude. I was like, oh, look at the cops first.
Wellness check.
Okay. All right. I was like, that already doesn't make sense to me. The shaking down.
I was wondering why you were getting so hung up on that, the welfare check part of it. That makes a lot of sense.
I usually use the term wellness. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Wellness
I will
checks.
say welfare is defined by the health, happiness, and fortunes of a person or group. So they are basically, it's like, I've only heard of wellness check, but I'm going
on
as
like
it
welfare,
is written.
Is that just spelled differently or is it just
spelled the same?
Spelled the same, right?
So
it's just using the fact that like the family needs help with money.
Yeah, it's like a homonym.
Yeah. Okay.
Situation.
All right.
Okay. I was wondering why he wasn't going ham on JFK's assassination link.
Yeah.
Well, because I was derailed. I was like, why are these cops shaking people down? Okay.
Now
all
we know.
Right. We're back on the same page.
I was like, okay, it's a good detail to hang up on.
Because
I thought you were onto an interesting question. Like, why would a cop just do a random wellness check? And we're going to get into all
that.
But
also, now that is my question.
But yeah.
Why are the cops there still?
Right. And because that's still a valid question. So that's my confusion. There was confusion on confusion.
It was. And we didn't even get to the JFK stuff. I'm just going to let that unfold on its own.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we have that sorted, I do want to say we have a true crime episode on our hands. Task Force, you know what you're getting into, but for the sake of everybody at home, we will be putting a list of sensitive topics in the description, as we always do when they arise. You know to expect that. But this case gets gnarly. There's a lot of details going on, but I do want to say, if you want this podcast ad-free, if you want some bonus episodes, some bonus content of what we do at Red Web, in addition to a bunch of other stuff, you can go to redwebpod.com/first. It's essentially our Patreon. It's a way to support us directly. It is the number one way to do so, in fact.
Keeps the lights running. And now officially announced, we'll build in a welfare center on the third floor.
Right. And you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you'll get a check, and sometimes you'll get checked.
Exactly. Yeah.
You might get paid, and you might get patted down. You know, it goes both ways. But we are currently remodeling subsurface level 3. It's not that far down.
Yeah. Sorry, we took away the gym.
Right. The gym had to go. But yeah, sign up, become a first member. You get access to that welfare center. Everything the body needs. All right, let's dive into it. June 23rd, 1965, 2 police officers were dispatched for a wellness check to the home of Edwina and Fred Rogers in the Montrose neighborhood of Houston, Texas. Their nephew, Marvin Martin, was worried because he hadn't heard from his aunt Edwina in quite some time. They didn't answer their phone and seemingly refused to answer the door. We couldn't find exactly how long this went on, but suffice to say it had been multiple days.
Yeah, long enough. I'm assuming anywhere between past a couple days to like weeks, a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Captain Charles Bullock and his partner L.M. Barta arrived at 1815 Driscoll Street around 9 p.m. that night. And as expected, no one answered the door. The two police officers went around back, only to find that the back door had been barricaded on the inside with flower pots. When they forced their way into the home, Bullock reported he immediately felt suspicious. Something was off. The house was messy, which Martin claimed was usual for the Rogers, but there was uneaten food left in the kitchen. At this point, Bullock opened the refrigerator, though he reports he wasn't sure why he did that. Sources debate exactly why Bullock would have opened the fridge. It may seem like an odd thing to question, but it's also an odd choice given the circumstances. Either way, it's important.
I mean, maybe just to... The only thing I can think of is you open the fridge to see if there's any spoiled foods, because that could give you an indication of like how long.
That's a great point.
Right? Without having like a coroner on the scene.
Yeah.
And getting into the science of it all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Check the egg dates.
I'm just, see if anything's molding. See, that could give away like how long people,
sure,
have been, the house has been kind of like empty.
Yeah. Or if it was pilfered in some way, indicating someone had been staying there, or maybe the officer was just hungry, It's
true. Late night snack.
But this is an interesting point, and we're laboring on it because of what comes next. Either way, upon looking in the fridge, they found practically all the shelves full of butchered meat, which the two police officers believed to be unwrapped hog. Like hog meat that had been butchered and left basically naked on the shelves.
Oh, okay.
That was until right before they closed the fridge door. As the officer was turning away, they noticed something through the clear glass shelves looking into the vegetable drawers. 2 human heads.
All right, hold on. My thought process derailed there. It was first human heads, shocking. Secondly, how big are those vegetable drawers?
That's a good point. Mine aren't that deep.
Like, damn. I mean, I don't want to make light of the situation, but like, vegetable drawers aren't usually that huge. Okay.
That's an interesting point.
That's a weird sight. I would think it's like crammed in there. I mean, some fridges do have large vegetable things, but I'm just picturing it squeezed in there now because of that.
Oh, gruesome.
Which is really gruesome. And my goodness, like, what an extreme. And I say this all the time. Like, it's one thing to take a life. It's another thing to perform the act of dismembering a body.
Oh, yeah.
That's just a whole nother level of sickness. But here we are.
And then storing it in the fridge.
Yep.
Thusly. So the officer later recounted that moment to Lakeland Ledger, saying this, quote, "I didn't know immediately what it was. Just as I was closing the door, I saw the heads through the clear glass of the vegetable bin. The heads belonged to, as you can surmise, Edwina and Fred Rogers. Their remains had been chopped up, drained of blood and entrails, then neatly stacked in the fridge. Fred's eyes and genitals had been removed, and his entrails seemingly flushed down the toilet, as they weren't anywhere on the premises, but otherwise there was no blood in the house."
So a professional did this.
Someone being very meticulous, yeah, for sure. Knowing a little bit about what they were doing here.
Yeah, this isn't... Okay, so I would say like professional or someone that's continuously done this. So already my mind is wandering to like, is this like a hip man for a group or for hire or something?
Right.
Because it isn't one of those things where you just go and do it. Like, you've had to had practice.
And to push yourself through, I mean, we're of sound mind and body, right? And as you're indicating, it's already a big hurdle to jump in and murder somebody. It's a whole other thing to continue to stay in that vein and carve the body apart, store them away. You are in the depths of a territory I can't even understand.
Yeah,
right?
I guess it's just
like doing this.
It
So
has to be someone with just a lack of emotion or
must
sympathy.
be. Or like, there's a lot of things that we're going to dig into kind of in the theories, but I want you to hold on to that.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
So anything from experience to lack of empathy, or like it could kind of imply a motive, all those things we're going to kind of come back around to.
I'm just curious to try and figure out, as the story unfolds, what the motive is, because, I mean, this is an older couple. So far, we're not talking about a big, lavish house.
No.
Or, you know what I mean?
Like, in the heart of downtown Houston in the 60s, probably pretty standard.
Yeah, I mean, so it doesn't seem like the motivation is money or whatnot, but I mean, I don't know, we're still pretty early on to the mystery. So I'm leaning more towards just standard home invasion.
Well, tell me what you think of this. I'm going to add some more detail here. Because among all the body parts that had been butchered and stowed away, they never did find the couple's arms.
Trophies? Like, I don't know, man. Like, this is really weird.
Yeah. On top of that, and eerily enough, the autopsy found that the couple must have been killed on Father's Day that year, and that whoever had done it appeared to have knowledge of the human anatomy. It also showed that Edwina had been physically assaulted before being shot in the head, and Fred's cause of death was bludgeoning to the head. Police did eventually find a small trail of blood somewhere in the house that then led them to a blood-stained keyhole saw in their son's attic room. That's right, their son had been living with them up in the attic room, though he was nowhere to be found. And for what it's worth, a keyhole saw is one of those small handheld blades. It's got like a long, narrow, serrated blade, often used to cut holes in drywall, softwoods, things of that nature. Literally like cutting keyholes.
Yeah. So was the son missing at this point?
Missing or just unaccounted for?
Yeah.
They don't know.
Yeah.
So considering their son, Charles Rogers, may be the only witness to this crime, of course, immediately a warrant went out for his arrest. And this is where the case really starts to focus now on Charles Rogers, before we then dive into the theories as to what happened and what the motivations were for each of the theories.
Could you imagine if, like, you were just a son on vacation, and then like you're coming back, but not only do you come back to a horrific, scene. I mean, you're not going to see it, but like,
you land and you're arrested.
But yeah, you land, you're arrested. I'm like, are you like? That would piss me off.
Well, I think you'd have an alibi in that case.
Right, you'd have an alibi and everything, but like, it's just one of those things where just like, I was just traveling for a vacation. I come back, my parents are dead in the most gruesome way, and like I get it. Like, you gotta, you know what I mean? Suspects are, it's always the person closest to the family or the person or whatever. But I'm like, damn, man, like, that's just a terrible icing on the cake.
Oh, yeah. Charles is an interesting individual. That's an interesting hypothetical, but I don't know if we'll have one such positive-leaning hypothetical with this case. Again, it's unsolved, but there are various angles with which to look at this. So, Charles Rogers was actually the owner of his family's home, and like his parents, hadn't been heard from in a long time. Some of the neighbors had never even met Charles, despite him being the homeowner. At the time of his parents' death, he would have been 43 years old and was said to be very intelligent. Charles spoke multiple languages, he had a bachelor's degree in nuclear physics, and he was enlisted in the Navy flying planes in World War II. He also served in the Office of Naval Intelligence for a time.
I mean, but none of that is anatomy smart.
True. True.
Of course, like, this is a person that's wired and very capable of accomplishing very complex things.
Right.
But that's a different breed,
Sure.
So,
but what's the difference between a human body and a nuclear fission engine? You know what I'm saying? Basically the same thing.
Yeah, it's one and the same.
This is where if it was text form, I'd have to put /F or sarcasm. No, you're right, though. I mean, very informed individual, very smart. I mean, they could have been self-studied in a few ways. I don't want to pull that away, but
most definitely.
But you're right.
But just looking at it from surface level,
yes, professional experience is missing this item, this kind of angle. But after the war, Charles actually became a seismologist until 1957, when he abruptly resigned from his job after 9 years without notice. So interesting. It is unknown why he quit, and just for the sake of being thorough, seismology is the study of what's under the surface of the Earth by measuring vibrations on the Earth's surface, usually earthquakes, things of that nature. After that, Charles reportedly grew more and more reclusive. In fact, it was unknown whether or not he had a job at all at the time of his parents' death. Reportedly, he would leave before sunrise and return to their home after his parents had already fallen asleep. We'll kind of come back around and touch on this point a little bit more later.
Okay, so Charles is a bit of a character.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there could be some stress with finances that could be popping up now, because he, abruptly leaving a job. And this just kind of seems like hearsay, but I mean, also possibly not having one, but, having a mortgage to pay, etc.
Yeah, it's great instinct. I mean, great thoughts for sure. Now, according to Rogers' maid, Edwina had not even seen Charles for 5 years.
How is that even What?
That is pretty wild. So again, I do also want to flag, because Christian pointed this out while we were doing the research. It is interesting, and we looked into it because Task Force, you might have noticed an incongruity here, but like the house was always known to be a little bit messy, yet they had a maid. I'm not sure if we can kind of really fully answer for that, because they did actually have a maid, yet it was still like lived in. It wasn't like completely, empty of like, you know what I'm saying? Like after a maid comes through, it's all like clean and sparkly. But did we ever like find anything to kind of answer for that? Was it like a less frequent maid, or was it just kind of like certain rooms?
No, we couldn't really find anything on how often the maid came by.
Okay.
If they focus on any specific areas of the house. We know that they had a maid, but like you're saying, we know that the house was also known to be messy. So it's kind of
interesting.
We don't really know.
Well, imagine how it would have been without the maid, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been more of the lines of a caretaker.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Taking out the trash, maybe helping with meals or something like that.
Yeah, and less like upkeeping the house.
Could have been. Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to flag that, because if anybody picked that up and then doubted that the maid was a true maid or anything like that, it would then suddenly a lot of this story would fall away, right? But again, according to the maid, Edwina had not seen her son in 5 years. And when he was home, Charles stayed in his room and only communicated with his parents by sending notes under the door. When investigators went to his room, they found a few things. In addition to that saw I mentioned earlier, they also found a hot plate, kettle, dishes, clothes, and ham radios. Weeks went by, and despite a nationwide search, Charles was nowhere to be found. Police even checked local airports to see if anyone saw a man that looked like Charles leave the airport, since he would have known how to fly a plane. He became the main suspect in the case later known as the Icebox Murders, and ultimately there were no clues that could point to where Charles might have gone. In 1975, Charles Rogers was declared dead, and the family home was torn down. While it's most likely that Charles killed his parents and fled, it's unknown why and where he would have gone, though Charles Rogers was added to the FBI's most wanted list, and then the trail went cold.
I mean, this could go so many different ways.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was announced dead just because we couldn't find him?
Pretty much.
I mean...
That would have been 10 years after?
Yeah, I mean, flee the country, change your identity, never look back, or the whole family was murdered, and then the body went missing. Charles' body went missing. Like if a professional came in, dismembered the parents, then took the body, I'm sure they know how to dismember a body down to smaller pieces, and then, you know what I mean? Like get rid of it without it being found. And so then everything just kind of gets pinned on Charles, which is quite unfortunate. And then it's a huge tragedy to have the whole house torn down too.
Yeah.
Like, dang. Like it just essentially just seems like just wiped from existence, which is so gruesome.
There's just so little to go off of. I mean, in the theories, I'm kind of playing the hand a little bit, because we'll discuss all this, but like anything could have happened, right? As you said, he could have fled the country. He could have been coerced in some way, or kidnapped in another way, or, taken to a second location and then been disposed of, right? Like so much could have gone on, and there's so little to follow here. But that said, there are some interesting theories that attempt to, as always, connect the dots that we do have to develop a story that answers the question. But again, I will say, almost like a blanket statement for all the theories, very little evidence supports them all, though they are interesting in their own ways.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me. Like, what else do you have to go off of, right?
Yeah.
The number one suspect is missing. Just seems like there's nothing that kind of leads you in any direction. There is no mysterious footprint, or, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
It was very cleanly done, which is a sad thing to say. And so I'm interested to see what the theories are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't expect much juice behind them, but they could be very curious.
We'll see.
This episode of Red Web is sponsored by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Whether your resolution is to save money, eat better, or stress less, HelloFresh is here to help you do all three. Say hello to your most delicious year yet with fresh ingredients and chef-crafted recipes at a price you'll like, delivered right to your door. Each HelloFresh box is packed with farm-fresh ingredients, and everything arrives pre-portioned right to your doorstep for less hassle and less wasted food. I love HelloFresh. Their food is so good, and they deliver all the key ingredients you need. No more grocery store trips for this guy. I just recently had a tangy plum Dijon glazed chicken, and I mean, if that alone doesn't sell you, oh my goodness, was it incredible. Love me some HelloFresh meals. Go to HelloFresh.com/RedWebFree and use code RedWebFree for free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/RedWebFree with code RedWebFree. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Magic Spoon. If your New Year's resolution is to cut back on sugar, add more protein to your diet, or stay on track with your fitness goals, Magic Spoon makes that easier and more delicious than ever. Magic Spoon has a variety pack. The 4 flavors are cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter. This pack has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. And it's only 140 calories a serving. It's high protein, has 0 grams of sugar, it's keto-friendly, it's gluten-free, it's grain-free, and it's soy-free. I think Magic Spoon is delicious. I'm a big fan of the frosted flavor, and if I can have a nice, sweet breakfast cereal while also giving me some protein so I can be more health-conscious coming into the new year, there's nothing better. Go to magicspoon.com/redweb to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code REDWEB at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, start the new year off right with a delicious bowl of high-protein cereal at magicspoon.com/redweb and use the code REDWEB to save $5 off. Thank you, Magic Spoon, for sponsoring this episode.
All right, so let's dive in, starting with the Gardenier theory. A Houston couple researched the icebox murders in their spare time, so much so that they wrote a book on it in 2003 with their own theory. These were forensic accountants Hugh and Martha Gardenier, and they believed that Charles meticulously planned to murder his parents for years. The couple looked over all the archived records related to the case and the family. They claimed that Fred and Edwina were abusive and forced Charles to take out loans against the house, forging his signatures on documents and even stealing his money. This would explain why he constantly wanted to avoid seeing them. After interviewing relatives of the Rogers, Martha told KHOU, a local news outlet, quote, "They really didn't have anything against the Charles for doing this. They could honestly see why it happened."
The bold thing to say.
Bold thing to say. I don't think, no matter how bad anything is, that taking justice into your own hands in that way would be, you can sympathize with the pain of it all and kind of maybe the motive.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of a treacherous thing to step into, to claim.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where we're just like, what? I'm like, you know me, I like to get in these headspaces, and this is a weird one, but like, what would push me to do that to a human being? I can't really think of anything, but I was like, if I had a child, that person harmed my child, like, and the child's no longer with me.
I think you've got a real John Wick scenario about you. Someone come in and talk about touching Boo or Liam, your little corgis.
Yeah. I think I have a very, like, if I have nothing else, I'm burning everything down.
Right. You are very family-oriented, and if anything were to mess with that,
that's
scorched earth for you.
Yeah. But, I mean, to come out and say that, that's a little, you know what I mean?
Again, you can sympathize with.
I mean, even what I'm saying is like the extreme of the extreme, right? And like even then, like to actually perform it is a whole nother mindset, a whole nother level. But
there's being like totally understand why he did this. It sucks what happened to him, and then there's I don't feel bad for him making that call at all for him doing
I can see
the
where
deed.
He's coming from, and it's more so just yes, I get like there's probably like abuse. And there's finances tied to it, but, that's rough. That's a rough situation to be in.
Well, it continues to kind of unfurl a little bit. The Gardeniers also claimed that Charles was making money by working with the CIA while he was a seismologist. The Gardeniers say that Fred Rogers was active in illegal gambling and fraud. And at the time of their deaths, Fred would have been 81, Edwina would have been 79, and both were retired salespeople. So given their age and given their experience, it's debatable whether or not Fred would have still been in this illegal gambling, fraud, crime scene at this age. Either way, it could have been, I don't know. Again, it's just debatable, but it's an element to their theory.
Dang, I think what's so unfortunate, it's just the fact that, like, yeah, that's the number one suspect to look at, and that's the only suspect to look at, and there's probably good odds that, you know, he did something nefarious, but man, is the son's character just being attacked? Like, because there's nothing to go off of. And so it's just interesting to see, like, that's just kind of what happens, right?
Well, they are painting a background to say, like, well, everyone around him was doing bad things, so it pushed him to do the bad thing. So his character's still kind of intact. They're kind of giving a motive.
Yeah. I guess just the more so the thing I'm trying to get across is the fact that, like,
that he would be willing and able to do this.
No, it's more so it's like their lives.
Yeah.
And people are just this is my theory on what happened.
Right.
You know what I mean? And this is my theory on them as a character.
Right. But remember, these are people.
Yeah.
And also, again,
it's pretty wild.
The blanket statement is not a lot of evidence to support a lot of these claims among the multiple theories we have.
Yeah.
So you're not wrong. It's definitely throwing some stuff out there to connect dots at the expense of some people's character.
The family.
So let me break down the theory that they wrote into their book, including some of their findings. So the theory is that Charles had been planning the murder for years. He then fled the United States for Mexico with the help of some oil industry friends he met on his ham radio. The theory continues that he later got to Honduras before he was killed after an argument with miners. Not young folks, but like actual mining people. Reportedly, and this is based on a few things, reportedly some sources claim that rumors of Charles escaping to South America popped up within days of the murders. Additionally, the Gardeniers claimed that an anonymous witness saw Charles in Honduras. This theory, and I'm trying to connect the dots on their behalf. I didn't read their entire book, but basically it's trying to connect some dots on a few fronts. Charles was a polyglot. He spoke multiple languages, and it's possible he spoke Spanish. Charles was a seismologist, so in addition to having a ham radio that he could speak to anybody with a ham radio in the area, he could have also developed connections in the oil industry via that job. In addition to that, I started looking into a ham radio, what the average range of that thing would be, and it's somewhere between 20 and 300 miles on an average modern ham radio.
Oh, dang.
But that is more than enough for him being in Houston to reach out to people on like oil rigs. And so if he did discover somebody in the oil industry who could help him, he's like 60 miles away from the nearest oil rig. Though, if he were trying to talk to somebody in Mexico, I kind of, as the crow flies, the nearest city on the border would have been about 300 miles away, which is really pushing the limits. But it's possible, right? Like, it's possible he met people on the ham radio, spoke to them, or he had pre-existing relationships. But either way, the theory was premeditated and then fled, with his motive being the financial elements, the abuse elements.
Yeah.
And then also possibly on top of that, the parents or Fred doing the illegal gambling and fraud things. So it's layered.
They're just throwing a lot of stuff onto the family.
That's kind of what it feels like.
And it's just like, we fled. I mean, I get that one has some possible weight to it because there was an anonymous person that said they saw, but like ran to the miners and the miners killed them. It's just like, where is this all coming? A lot of it's like, where's it coming from? Again, there's like, there's not much to go off of. But man, I feel like people are just really running away with it.
Yeah, it's really hard to track down anonymous claims internationally and rumors in the area.
But these are people that are like writing books and stuff about it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you can question their motive. I mean, they've got a financial stake in answering or trying to answer this question. It's an interesting theory. I think there could be elements of truth in it, whether they're accidentally getting into the truth or actually pulling things together. But it does feel a little bit like, well, let's answer the why with three different directions, but then also, it is throwing a little bit at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah,
but it's interesting. But now, we're going to get real interesting. We're going to move on to the JFK theory. Now, before I do, I'm just curious if you can even like instinctively pull out,
find out what the hell the connection is.
Yeah.
That Charles and Ed, I mean, he had a connection to the CIA and.
Okay.
What was he? The one on the grassy knoll that pulled the trigger, and then he had to be Obviously, no loose ends type situation here. But then why go after the parents? I don't know.
He is talking about all the right things and all the right questions. Let's expand. I love it.
I was like, what is the wildest thing? I'm like, oh, okay.
And you got it, but
no way.
More or less. All right. So this is, in fact, a popular theory. It states that Charles Rogers and the murder of his parents were somehow involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. On November 22nd, 1963, just a few short years prior to this whole crime going down, Kennedy, the President of the United States, was shot and killed during a motorcade through Dallas, Texas, another major city in the state.
Yeah.
Not super close, not super far.
Close enough.
Absolutely. There are many conspiracy theories surrounding the JFK assassination as it is, and I think someday maybe we'll dive into all that, but most famously, that the murder was planned and covered up by the CIA. You dabbled in the grassy knoll situation. That's also floating out there. Now, the 1992 book entitled The Man on the Grassy Knoll was written by investigators John Craig and Philip Rogers of the National Intelligence Service Bureau. They theorized that Charles Rogers was connected to the assassination conspiracy in some way. Now, they claim that he was a CIA operative. Earlier, I kind of mentioned that the Gardeniers had a theory that maybe he was also working with the CIA while being a seismologist, or maybe that was the cover. These individuals kind of maybe kindled that idea 10 years prior to their book. So, as it states, he was a CIA operative recruited in 1956 based on his background in naval intelligence. Craig said at this time, oil industry jobs were the perfect cover-up for working in the CIA. The authors go on to state that Charles even posed as Lee Harvey Oswald in Mexico City, preparing for the assassination. Charles often drove to Latin America, and the CIA was active in this area throughout the 50s and the 60s. The theory goes on to suggest that Charles was one of the, quote, 3 tramps. These were the 3 unknown men arrested in Dallas shortly after the assassination. These men are often used as evidence in conspiracy theories that there were multiple shooters. Craig and Rogers claimed that friends of Charles compared him to one of the 3 tramps. So we have some loose odds and ends here.
Yeah.
Nothing like evidential, nothing substantial, but interesting. Now, perhaps this is why he was so secretive and did not explain what he did after his career as a seismologist. Theorists also claim that he communicated over ham radios with other agents, not so much maybe other people in the oil industry, but that was why and how he stayed connected to intelligence. But this main theory that we're talking about continues, claiming that after the assassination, Charles disappeared for 5 months and his mother grew suspicious when he returned. She began tracking his phone calls because he received so many and often had to take notes for him. The theory continues to state that maybe she eventually knew too much and he had to murder both of his parents before then going into hiding. If this was true, it's strange and quite excessive to dismember his parents before putting them in the fridge.
Or, I mean, to make it seem like it would have nothing to do with the CIA. Like, it can't possibly be the CIA. They don't chop people up and then shove them in fridges.
Not that you know. Who knows? The C in CIA stands for secret, okay? So we don't know what they get up to.
Okay, yeah, that's... All right. That one threw me. That one threw me.
But it's an interesting point. I mean, like, there's one thing to go, okay, this national security secret is so large, so substantial that I now have to make the tough choice of killing my parents. But beyond that, to then dismember them, put them in the fridge. I mean, it's not like that was the end goal. Craig does claim that he intended to cut them up so he could then dispose of them in some way, so he couldn't be tracked. But because something stopped him, that's why you caught him with bodies in the fridge. The arms were missing. Maybe he disposed of those, but hadn't gotten to the rest yet. So maybe being caught midway through just makes him look like he's dismembering people for other motives. I don't know.
Again, I just feel like we're really just trying to fill in the gaps here. And I get it because it's not like, it's nothing to go off of. But yeah, it's just really people just trying to put it's their spin on it. Mm-hmm. For sure.
And I mean, this is definitely their spin because they're, intelligence investigators.
Yeah.
So this is kind of in their realm. And so they would feel comfortable with kind of extrapolating some of those pieces. But they claim their evidence, though, when it comes down to it all, was based on interviews with, yet again, anonymous individuals, this time from CIA agents who interacted with Charles. So they're claiming that he did have a secret life with the CIA. There were agents that interfaced with him, and those agents themselves were willing to spill the beans. Okay, that gives me pause. It's interesting that that could have happened. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But if they're willing to spill the beans to somebody writing a book, and then the information's out there, why is Charles killing his parents to keep the information, secret? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, though. I know the agents are anonymous, but is it verified that they are CIA agents?
That's a great question.
You know what I mean?
Because we don't know.
Like, I need that at least.
Right. Anonymous sources say I'm 6'7".
You know what I mean? Because otherwise, if they're not verified as CIA agents, then we're messing up as Red Web, and we need to start bringing in head of NASA.
Right.
You know
and
I've
actually met that guy.
Pulitzer Prize winners.
Haven't met those.
And then just say, no, don't verify them. And bring them in, and then just have them talk and talk and talk and talk.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently that's what people are doing.
Right. Just interview some Joe Schmo off the street and then go, anonymous alleged CIA agent Joe Schmo said this. Now, there's not a lot to go off of, and at the risk of saying this too many times, being redundant, essentially, there's no evidence really to back all this up. But one thing that to some helps substantiate this theory is that, and I'll just get ahead of it, it does seem a bit thin, it's based on trust, but when this theory was presented in 1991, Houston homicide detective Jim Binford did take it seriously, and that was reported by the Victoria Advocate. And there's a lot of history with Jim Binford. He is a homicide detective, like I said, but he has investigated thousands of murder cases. And so for someone like that to have such deep experience, I think he was the youngest detective to take on, to spearhead murder cases in his department and everything. So he's got a colorful resume that is well marked. It's just, if he's seeing certain consistencies with this theory to real cases, that's something to think about.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But anonymous CIA folks, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that said, let's move on to a couple of shorter theories. The most simple theory, and it is probably the most likely theory, is that Charles killed his parents out of anger before perhaps ending his own life. The Gardeniers might have been right about the abuse that Charles was victim to, especially since he owned the house, yet many neighbors had no idea he existed. With the murder occurring on Father's Day and Fred receiving more specific injuries, Fred may have been the main abuser. There could have been a very tense relationship there, and it being on Father's Day is kind of a more significant moment, and it could have been extra heated. It doesn't really try to spackle in the gaps at all. It just kind of states it as is. There could be motive in this way, and maybe this is what he did.
I mean, it's a very specific day.
Mm-hmm.
Then on top of that, you said the more extensive injuries to the father. And it's definitely something to go off of, right?
Yeah.
And you can only go off of what you have. And
right.
We have very little, but that's something that we have.
I mean, 100%. This does line up with crimes of passion, as it were, if I'm not misusing that term, because the mother was shot in the head to essentially end it outright.
Yeah.
But the father instead was bludgeoned, which would take a little bit more, I don't know.
Also, weren't the genitals on the father cut off?
Yes.
Interesting.
And the eyes were cut out.
Just on the father?
That's what we know. I don't know if was it confirmed that...
Because I know we talked about it on the father, but I don't know if it was confirmed on the mother.
From what we could find, it was just the father that had that level of dismemberment.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
extra attention.
Yeah, that is extra attention.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's huge, though.
Yep. So that does kind of lean into some
type of friction between father and son.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's meaty to kind of go off of for sure.
Yeah.
Which does give way for some of the theories that people had.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it could be I see the lane that they got into and how they got into it.
For sure. Yeah.
So, okay.
No, 100%. But then the other theory, again, just kind of a one-sentence theory, doesn't really go off of anything or extrapolate much further, but it does say that perhaps someone else was in the picture, killed the parents, and then took Charles with them. Really not based on anything other than attempting to answer this mysterious instance. But that is the Icebox Murders case. Remains unsolved to this day. Some very interesting theories. As always, we're going to analyze, we're going to pull things apart where we can try to debunk things if we can, leave them open if we can't. Just want to be honest about some of the potential assumptions made and the anonymous witnesses, but otherwise the theories are interesting.
Yeah, they're very interesting theories. And like, this is a very, I'm a little baffled because like the case itself, it just seems so thin, right? Like the parents are dead, the son is missing, but there's possibly a lot of emotional weight to it.
Definitely. A lot of emotional weight.
Really, if you look at the details, it paints a bigger picture than you think. And I think that's what makes this case so interesting.
Do you want to recap some of those pieces that you're picking up on?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that like the body's being heavily dismembered, you know what I mean?
Yep.
More attention on the father's body.
Right.
The son missing. The son being in the attic when he owns the house, never being seen. Then the son going missing. There's just, like I said, it paints a larger picture than you think.
And I will say, to add to that too,
and it does kind of keep it in the family. I know initially I was thinking, okay, maybe home invasion, whatnot, but I mean, like, yeah, the details does kind of wrangle it in to be something within the house.
Absolutely. So it does paint a very vivid picture of perhaps some premeditation, emotions were high, and on top of that, to add, there was very little blood found. The cleanup was pretty thorough, as if somebody knew what they were doing, had experience with it, or had kind of looked into it in some way, until just a small trail of blood led to that keyhole saw. So in a lot of ways, this does paint, I think, a vivid image with which these theories are leaping off from. So they are leaping off of assumptions, but some intelligent leaps of logic, right? But
yeah,
tough case to leave closed, or open rather.
For sure. And I mean, just to kind of like go over, because I'm still going over some of the details. I mean, like the missing limbs, right? The arms were missing. And so that just paints a whole nother rabbit hole of, you said it was a relative that knocked on the door, right?
Yes, I believe it was
like a nephew or something.
Yes, Marvin Martin.
Maybe Charles was in the act, and yeah, like you were saying earlier, already had disposed of the arms, and so it was just kind of cut short of like, oh, I don't have as much time as I thought I did. Maybe dismembered the bodies, did some cleaning, and then piece by piece was like, let me just piecemeal these different body parts out of here, as opposed to having to do a lump sum of like lots of weight and messier job and harder to kind of cover it up, right?
Yeah.
But if you're just taking little bags, which sounds wild, but yeah.
Fall of the House of Usher, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the pieces that happened in there where they were like, are you smuggling out bodies by little pieces in your purse?
Yep.
I mean, and I hate to even bring up this topic, but I was kind of, as we looked into this, astounded that it wasn't part of it. And maybe that's just me seeing too many cases like this, but I'm surprised even cannibalism wasn't part of the picture. And I'm just going straight off of bodies in the fridge, arms missing, and honestly, like some of the utensils, hot plates, stuff up in the attic. Oh,
God. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I could definitely see that picture being painted. Yeah, for sure. Someone that eats people and has experience, and yeah.
Yeah. So, but this has been the Icebox Murders case, as cold as the name would imply. But Fredo, with that said, I'll see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.